It's the lockdown edition of the Hot Air Sports Podcast. Today with me, Macca, and my good mate Mahona. And you'll see next to me another face who's come back from the Olympic Games, and he's Guy Heveldt. Welcome back, Guy. How's MIQ going?
G'day, fellas. Yep, very good, very good. Enjoying it. In the Chateau in the park in Christchurch, and it's fantastic. Great people, great food, great bed. I've got everything I need really for 14 days. Yeah, it's all good. I'm up to day 10 or 11, I think it is. I can't keep count, but out on Tuesday. So no, but I'm all good.
And what a perfect timing. Perfect timing for you, mate. As the country goes into lockdown, you're locked down already. Hey.
I know. It actually makes it a lot easier knowing that everyone else is in the same boat, and I'm getting food delivered to me. I don't even have to cook it myself. Can't complain.
Brilliant.
Spectacular.
So you survived Tokyo. Obviously, give us a bit of an insight into what it was like in Tokyo over the time you were there.
Yeah, I did survive, and you know, despite everything that was happening going into it, and all the reports of people not wanting it and all that sort of thing, I never felt unsafe, both in terms of potentially getting COVID. I never felt unsafe in terms of the Japanese people not wanting us there. It was an outstanding experience. One of the best experiences of my life, certainly of my reporting career. The Olympics were outstanding. So many just brilliant achievements, which I'm sure we'll talk about, both from the New Zealanders and from overseas athletes as well. And, you know, as I say, Tokyo may not have wanted it going into it, but I think as the Olympics went on, people got into it, both in Japan and around the world as well. And yeah, it was a bit, well, it was obviously sad to see what was going on around the rest of Tokyo in terms of the numbers rising and that sort of thing. And you can't help but think maybe the Olympics did contribute to that in some regard. But as I say, there was no animosity towards us or anything. And even when we were leaving the airport, Japanese locals were there and were waving us off, you know, that they were sad to be seeing us go. And I think, as I say, they really enjoyed the sporting action that they got, which I hope took their minds away from what was going on around them for a little bit, because I think that did certainly for a lot of the world. And I just hope that it did for Japan as well.
Yeah, well, the two of us were pretty vocal about the fact that they shouldn't have gone ahead, but obviously once they started, we got into it.
And, absolutely.
And I've got two words for you, Guy: Lisa Carrington.
Yeah, I don't think you can overstate what she did. Just simply unbelievable. And I'm not quite sure whether it fully registered just how difficult it was, what Lisa Carrington achieved in terms of the K1 200, the K2 500, the K1 500, and then of course she didn't win a medal in the K4 500, but just doing that event as well. To pack all that into one Olympics, into one campaign over the space of a week, it was mind-blowing, really. And you know, for her to win gold in the K1 200 and the K2 500 on the same day, she had to go the heats for both of those events the day before. So I think it was the Monday, and let's just say it was for this argument. On the Monday, she had to do that. Then on the Tuesday, she was in the boat again for the semi-finals of the K1 200. Then for the K2 500, literally straight after each other. She'd get out of the boat of one, jump into the boat of the other. Then she'd have maybe a half-hour rest or something to eat. Not really a rest, probably just, you know, calming down from the heat, have something to eat, jump back in the K1 200, win gold in that, and then literally jump straight into the K2 500 with the Caitlin Regal and win gold in that as well. I mean, it was just
ridiculous,
mind-blowing. And as I say, in that heat, and it was hard to convey just how hot it was, but man, it was hot. It was unbelievably hot, to the extent of some days it was 45, felt like 45 degrees. And, you know, they were out in the middle of that. There was no shade for them, for Lisa Carrington in probably a couple of hours. You know, that's how long she was on the water for. It was a superhuman effort.
Yeah, and she's doing it in kayaking, a sport where you're pushing your body to the absolute extremes, aren't you? You're at the absolute limit of your physical, you know, the physical possibilities of the human body, and yet she seemed to be able to recover so fast to do it. It's almost like someone doing a 800 and 1500 meter run. You know, it's just unbelievable. She's not human, mate. She's not human.
That K1 500 is grueling, unbelievably grueling. I mean, go out there and try and kayak 500 meters and then try and kayak 500 meters at the pace that she does. You won't be able to do it. But man, your body just goes through the ringer. And you know, she is, as we just said, a superhuman athlete. But even at the end of her races, man, she was spent. She was absolutely spent. And I think it was after that K1 500, she got out of the boat and she was just lying on the pontoon, absolutely drained of everything. She had to give it so much to win that gold. And I think that's also what made it probably that little bit more special, is that she achieved something that only one other Kiwi has achieved, and that's Ian Ferguson.
You'll be pleased to know that it did translate well, Guy. First of all, on television, it looked absolutely fantastic, didn't it? Regardless of the lack of crowds, that was something that I was really worried about. I mean, watching the Olympics in the past, the crowd was obviously a big part of it. And we all knew before this Olympics there wasn't going to be a crowd, so we prepared ourselves. And really, it didn't seem to stop the athletes performing. They were performing, there were world records all over the place. So besides the conditions, all that sort of thing. So, it translated absolutely brilliantly. And as far as Lisa Carrington goes, the GOAT discussion was, got started. Is she our greatest ever Olympian? That whole discussion kicked off. And I think she's pretty close. If she's not the GOAT already, she's pretty close. So do you think she'll continue though? Think she'll go for another Olympics?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. She hasn't really come out and said it in black and white, but reading between the lines, I think she's got other things in life that she wants to focus on and wants to achieve. And, when you've dedicated so much of your life to doing what she's done and then achieving what she's achieved, I mean, what more is there for her to do in this sport? And, in our Olympic history, if she's not the GOAT, she's right up there. Yeah. And, all power to her. She I don't want to put words in her mouth. I don't think it's right to do that sort of thing. She's earned the right to make the call on whether she continues or not. I'm reading between the lines. I don't think she will, but, who knows?
Just watching her races, obviously the commentators were very vociferous in their words of the power that she was getting off the line, and just the number of strokes that she was completing through those races. It looked like her paddle was going twice the speed of anybody else's.
Yeah, and that's what set her apart from everyone else in all of those races, really. She would get off the line so quickly, and in an instant, she would be half a boat length to a whole boat length ahead. Yeah. And that would be essentially the race over, because from there she can dictate what she needs to do. The only place where that didn't happen was the K4 500. They were about half a boat length behind after about 100 or so meters, and you thought, geez, this hasn't gone quite how every other race has gone. And as it turned out,
because she was stuffed.
Well, probably. And as it turned out, they obviously didn't win a medal. But I was so lucky to be there for that, and for the rowing as well. And those are 2 weeks of my life that I will remember forever.
So what were your highlights?
I'm just, the one event that actually is the only event that actually brought a tear to my eye was watching the men's eights. That just, 1972, I'm old enough to remember.
Yeah. Ian was only 21 in 1972 when the last win the way.
I'm old enough to remember us winning gold in 1972. And just watching that eight, just unbelievable. As I say, there was a tear rolling down my cheek watching them cross the line.
Yeah, that was my highlight as well. All the history, but not only that, where they'd come from. There was a time there, and I learnt this after they actually won gold. There was a time where Rowing New Zealand wasn't going to send the boat to the Olympics, wasn't even going to send them to the last chance regatta in Lucerne in March, I think it was, March or May. They did send them. They obviously won that regatta, and then they went through and had to win the repechage as well just to get into the final, which they then obviously won as well to win gold, where they came from behind to win that race. So, I mean, you just factor all of that in. It's unbelievable. No other eight. I think there's only one boat in Olympic history that has won the last chance regatta and then won Olympic gold outside of the men's eight. So for them to achieve that, simply unbelievable. And then, just the side kind of angles to that, what Hamish Bond has done, another part of the legacy in his simply phenomenal New Zealand sporting career. I mean, we talk about Lisa Carrington, but that guy has to be right up there. To go between rowing and then win a medal in road cycling at the World Championships, just brilliant. The guy is a machine, and to see him do that was very special. But both those 2 weeks were just so unbelievable. And it was a little bit sad that there weren't other Kiwis there. But I just hope that we were able to portray kind of the feeling and the mood and all that sort of stuff, and just how historic it was, because it was, I'll remember it forever. It was unbelievable.
A couple of weeks back, we talked about the women's sevens team and how I know for a fact I'm going to start to watch some more women's sevens and women's rugby, just purely on the back of their performances in that tournament. They just showed power, pace, and absolute passion. There was only one medal they were going to win at the Olympics, and that's gold, isn't it?
Well, yeah, although that Fijian side put them to the test, didn't they? Word, that was a cracking game of sevens. But yeah, that they are an awesome team, and they're so good to be around, and they've built this culture that I think is unmatched in New Zealand sport, particularly, that they are just so tight, but they also hold each other accountable. And you can see that in the games, you can see that in trainings, you can see that if you're watching on TV, or if you're at the ground, or if you're at training, whatever it might be, you can see it, that they hold each other accountable, but at the same time they incredibly respect each other, and there's a lot of love for each other in that team, and it's the bond, I think, that got them a long way to winning that gold medal. And people like Ruby Tui, Michaela Blyde, Portia Woodman, Sarah Hiddeny, people there that just should go down as some of champions. Our best ever sports people. Yeah, they are. And to see them win gold, such a deserved gold as well, considering what happened in Rio when they lost to Australia. I was pretty happy for them as well.
And what about other international? Sorry, mate. What about other international highlights? Can
I just go back?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Before we go on to other events. Just the performance of Val Adams to come back after two kids and to get up there and actually win a bronze medal. I was pretty impressed with that.
Yeah. Another one that you can't really understate, or that shouldn't be understated. What more do you say? 3 Olympic medals now. I don't know how old she is, but as you say, 2 kids. She was up against it for a while in the build up to these Olympics, and for her to come through and win a medal like that is absolutely outstanding. And another one that stuck out for me in terms of New Zealand, and I wasn't there either for this, but Tom Walsh.
Yes.
What it meant to him, that kind of surprised me, actually. I thought when I was looking, because initially I was watching his interview without the audio, and I thought he was really sad at not winning gold. And I was thinking to myself, man, you're up against Ryan Krause. Any medal, unfortunately, you're unlikely to win gold against that guy. But to win any medal in that event is awesome. And then to be able to watch that interview again with the sound on and actually hear what it meant to him, that really got me as well. I was very close to crying at watching that one, because I know how much that guy puts into it. And as he said, the year has been so hard for a lot of people, but it's been incredibly hard for him. And to get through that, and win a medal, another fantastic part of what was an awesome Olympics for New Zealand.
And can you believe we won a medal in trampolining? We won a medal. These other sports are coming out of the woodwork, so to speak. Trampolining. What's his name? Dylan Schmidt. I can believe that. And his interview was great too, man. Hang on, let's go back. Every single interview I saw with all our Olympians, man, they made me proud. They just seem like soul to the earth people who have worked their butt off to get there, and then to get some sort of reward for it. Like him, he was just like, oh my God, I can't even believe I made the semi-final. Then I made the final. I'm just like, dude.
But that's the thing about this team. This is the first Olympics I've ever been to, so maybe it is usually like this, but it really felt like, because there were no Kiwi fans there were no really other Kiwis there at all. It was just this team. It felt like it was one of the most tight-knit teams I've ever come across in terms of certainly Olympic history. And as I say, this is my first Olympics, so I've really got not much to go on. But I just could not believe how they were all on the same page. They were all so supportive of each other. That probably the environment around COVID and all the restrictions probably contributed to that a lot. But it really came across just how much they had put into that side of things. And I think the NZOC deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
That cannot have been easy, devising some sort of plan to make it feel like they were at home at least a little bit, and that there was a lot of love and support around them. And I definitely think they deserve some credit for achieving that, because it was pretty special to see whenever they won a medal, the emotion that came out, not only in the person who had won the medal, but everyone else in the team as well. And I think that's a massive credit to everyone who's put together this Olympics under such a challenging environment. It was fantastic to see.
Yeah, I think we'll all agree that it was a fantastic performance by our whole Olympic team, especially obviously the numbers bore it out, most successful Olympics ever, and especially in terms of gold. But what about international events? What took your eye from the international competitors while you're at the Olympics? You must have seen.
Well, it was funny, like I say just before, it was sad that others weren't able to be there, but that actually played into our hands because it meant that we could go to pretty much whatever we wanted. So we got around to quite a few events. I went to France against Slovenia in basketball, saw the likes of Luka Doncic and Rudy Gobert in an incredible semi-final as well that went right down to the last play, and Rudy Gobert pulled off this phenomenal block to put France in the final. That was pretty special. And then a lot of nights of athletics that we went to, and they really stood out. I got to the men's and women's 100-meter finals, both of them. And on one of those nights was probably the event that really stood out for me outside of New Zealand stuff, and that was the highlight of the final of the men's high jump. You might remember the Qatari and the Italian guy sharing gold, and we were in the stands quite high up for this one, and we didn't quite know what was going on, but they just started jumping around and hugging, and we were like, well, hang on, they've still got to decide who wins. This isn't over. Well, it turns out, obviously, we since found out that they asked if they could share the medal, and just the unbridled joy on both their faces, particularly the Italian guy who just went ballistic. That was really special. And a side note to that kind of is what human bodies can do to their potential. These athletes, you see it on TV and it's special to watch, but seeing it in the flesh, man, nothing can really prepare you for what these men and women can do. To jump over the heights that they were jumping over, to go at the speeds that they were going around the track, man, it was something to behold. My first Olympics, and that really stood out for me. And I also got to go to gymnastics before Simone Biles pulled out, and I think it was the qualifying, and she was obviously nowhere near her best. Otherwise, she probably would have competed in everything and won everything. But even when she's not at her best, man, she's good. What the human body can twist and turn, and jump so damn high and do all these flips, it blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. I've never seen gymnastics live, and my first time of seeing it was Simone Biles and other phenomenal gymnasts. That was pretty cool as well.
Brilliant.
So the Olympics are all over. You're just about done your MIQ. And you were there a week before the Olympics started. So over the 5-6 weeks since you left our shores, what's an abiding memory that you'll take away from this period of time?
That's a good question. The Sea Forest Waterway. Just that whole place and what New Zealand achieved there. Those 2 weeks will go down in our sporting history forever. And to think that I was there for
you were one of the handful
gold medals. Exactly. And that's even now. That's so weird to think that there were probably not even 50 Kiwis there.
Tens,
200 people at the whole venue.
We could hear your voice cheering.
You probably could, and you probably could. And to be honest, I did probably break some media conventions in terms of
good
helping
on you,
kick the black boats home.
That's the way.
It needed to be done.
Yes, it did.
But that will probably be my lasting memory. And also, and this is going to sound weird, but I think I mentioned it before. But when we were leaving Japan, after everything that had kind of happened and the case numbers going up and people not wanting the Olympics, walking through the departure area and then turning around to go down the escalator and seeing the Japanese people wave at us and with signs saying thank you and we love you and things like that. That was really cool. That was really cool. And I hope that I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but this will probably never happen. There's probably no chance it'll happen because the IOC likes making money and all that sort of thing. But why can't Tokyo host the 2036 Olympics? They've got all the infrastructure there. They that they've been robbed of the opportunity to host it was an outstanding Olympics, but their people have been robbed of the opportunity to be able to go, to be able to enjoy their own Olympics. Why can't they just be gifted the 2036 Olympics? They'll have to build another athletes village, but all the venues that were purpose built for this games will still be there. They'll still be in use. To me, it's logical. If they want it, that is. They might not want it, and they're probably going to see a massive financial hit from this, but they've a lot of that financial hit is from building these venues. And if they're there, and they'll still be pretty new by the time 2036 rolls around, if they want it, I think they should just be gifted the chance to host the 2036 Olympics.
Hey, oh, that's a great call. I reckon, put Guy in charge. Put Guy in charge of the
Geez,
IOC.
I wouldn't want that job. I mean, I'm not going off on a massive tangent here again.
It's a good call.
Thomas Bach rubs me up the wrong way a lot of times, but man, I wouldn't want his job for.
Nah, fair enough.
For every bit of the world.
Fair enough.
Well, I can safely say certainly for me and Mahona and other people that we've spoken to, the coverage out of Tokyo, especially on TVNZ, which is the news that we both watch, was absolutely outstanding. And personally, from me, you did a fantastic job.
You did.
Alongside Chris and Kimberly. And we couldn't have asked for much more. And I'll take you back to a story you did just before the Olympics, which had absolutely nothing to do with the Olympic Games.
I know the one you're talking
about. Shohei Ohtani, the amazing baseball player from Japan.
Yeah, it was funny. Thank you, first of all, for your kind words. As I said, just so lucky to be there. And I know how many people wanted to be there. And you did sit there a couple of times. And there was an element of sadness that couldn't happen. But the overriding emotion was just pure gratitude. And, in fortune that I could be there. I was just so lucky, privileged, really. But yeah, Shohei Ohtani, it was funny. I think it was like 2 or 3 days before the opening ceremony, and there weren't a lot of people. Actually, it may have been slightly more than that, but there were about a week. But there weren't that many people in Tokyo at this time. No media, really. We would go into the media center, and there were probably 20 people. And this is a huge, I can't explain how big this media center is. Enormous. Seats tens of thousands of people. And there were probably only 20 people or something. And so we were racking our brains about what we can do for stories. At that stage, we were on kind of our 2-week lockdown, which wasn't really a lockdown, but we couldn't go anywhere other than Olympic accredited venues in our hotel. And our hotel was just down the road from the embassy. Anyway, I digress. And we were wondering what on earth we were going to do for a story. And we had kind of been looking around and stuff, and someone mentioned to me Shohei Ohtani, and I said, "Oh, who's that?" And they said, "Oh, just look him up and read about what he's achieved."
Yeah. And
I did, and my word,
it's crazy.
The first thing I saw was that he was compared to Babe Ruth, and I thought, okay, he must be pretty good. So I did a little bit more reading, and I thought, yeah, this is quite an interesting story, actually.
Slightly different physique, yeah.
Yeah. Just a bit. And anyway, we went down to our local convenience store, which happened to be in our hotel, and every newspaper, and I mean every newspaper, and bear in mind I think it was a week out from the opening ceremony. Every newspaper's front page was Shohei Ohtani and what he was achieving in the MLB at the time, and I'm pretty sure it was either the home run derby or the All-Star game that was just around the corner. Yeah. And so he was everywhere, all over these front pages leading into the Olympics. I mean, it was staggering to think. And so I just thought, you know what, this is quite an interesting story. And I've learned a lot about him. We weren't able to really interview locals, but talked to a few locals at our restaurant, a couple of the waiters there. And I just said, Shohei Ohtani, and their faces just lit up. One of them said to me, "I'm so proud to be a Japanese person because of what he's achieving in the global baseball stage." And that really stuck with me. And I think I mentioned that in my live cross, but that was a bit of a left field story, but I think one that deserved to be told because, the Olympics was coming up and all anyone in Japan was talking about was this baseballer. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, as a baseball fan, I was pretty impressed.
I don't know a lot about baseball, but I learned
especially
quite a bit.
knowing your lack of knowledge around the diamond sport.
I'm trying, mate. I'm trying.
Yeah. No, you did well. Just moving away from the Olympics now. Well, we'll still going to be touching on it. We now go into our big issues section, and we've got 5 big issues that we'd like to talk with you about, Guy, especially the first one, and that is the mental health of athletes is back in the news again after the sad and sudden death of former Olympic cyclist Olivia Podmore last week. Are sporting organisations doing enough to support the mental health of athletes? And I see that an investigation is about to be launched around this. What are your thoughts, especially having just been with a group of athletes over the last 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, well, we were at the airport with the cyclists when the news came through, and you know, all the joy and everything that we had seen for the past 2 weeks, to have that kind of come crashing down and like that was a really sobering moment. To answer your question, are sporting organisations doing enough? Some of them are, some of them certainly not. And you know, it's an interesting one. It's incredibly sad, and it shouldn't have got to this point, in the sense that we shouldn't have had to lose the life of clearly a very lovely, outgoing, energetic, bubbly, talented person to make us have this conversation. And that's probably that is definitely the saddest thing, that it's taken this to get to this point. Look, elite sport is tough. It's incredibly tough. And, you know, selections, medals, whatever it might be, are decided by the most minute margins, tenths of a second, fractions of seconds. And, you know, I don't think we can quite understand that as people who aren't day in, day out competing in Olympic sport training, putting all your life into one thing. And just imagine for a second, if you are to miss something that you so dearly want by that much. And you know, in saying this, she'd actually qualified for the Olympics.
Yeah.
But they being Cycling New Zealand, thought that there were other people who were a better chance of winning a medal over her. And, you know, that might be wrong. It might be right. I feel a little bit for them, in the sense that, you know, they have to make these calls, that they
of course they do.
They're getting funding. They have to make the tough decisions. It's you know, no one likes telling anyone that they're missing out on a squad. But at the same time, when you are doing that, you need to have the right, and I don't know, maybe cycling, from what we're hearing, they didn't have this in place. Maybe they say they did. I don't know. But they need to have, and every other sporting organisation needs to have the right things in place to make sure that those athletes who miss out by that much, for whatever reason, whether it is because their time didn't meet the qualification by that much, or because the organisation sees them as slightly behind, and I mean slightly behind someone else, they still need to have the things in place that make sure that this individual is okay and will be able to get on with their lives and find something else that makes them happy, because clearly that didn't happen with Olivia Podmore. She couldn't find happiness. And that is so sad to think that, you know, she got that close, but because she wasn't quite close enough in their eyes, that brought her life to an end. And that is just, that's
tragic.
Yeah.
The thing is,
it's not the first time that Cycling New Zealand's been involved in something like this, is it? They had an issue 2 or 3 years ago.
And I think that's probably what makes this bigger.
Yeah.
Is because they had the opportunity and they had the spotlight on them, and they went through so much of a process around bullying, so many accusations, athletes coming out and saying that the culture wasn't right. And clearly nothing changed. Well, at least in Olivia's eyes, and by the sounds of things in other people's eyes as well. Clearly not enough changed in 2 to 3 years. And there is going to be one almighty spotlight on this sport, and in other sports as well, but particularly cycling, around how they handle this and how things change, because something's going to have to change. Otherwise, you know,
absolutely.
Hopefully we don't see this again, but we'll see athletes struggling, and that's just not right.
Well, it's happening everywhere. I mean, it's not just in sports; it's everywhere. You know, it's in all. It's all pervasive. It's right through our lives. You know, and it doesn't matter where you work. If you work at a gas station or you work as an airline pilot, everyone can be, you know, can succumb to the black dog, can't they? At some stage, and it's just, Yeah, it's just, I suppose, when the pressure comes on, though, when you're in those high stress pressure environments, it's just elevated, isn't it? And if you've got a predisposition to that sort of thing, then you're going to need support structures put in place. And I suppose, did the sport do enough? Well, the other thing is the media's got a responsibility as well. People have a responsibility, especially on social media, because we all think we have ownership of athletes because they've got the silver fern on. So they're for me, and they didn't do their best. Why didn't they do their best? And we seem to get angry and we get pissed off and we say, well, we should have got a gold there. We didn't get a gold. We've all got responsibilities as far as not putting the pressure on those sort of people. I'm sure they're their own worst critics, like we all are. We all know.
I know they are. A lot of them. I know a lot of them are.
Exactly. We all know when we haven't had a good day at work or a good. We all do. Yeah. We all beat each other up enough for that. So maybe we just need to all be a little bit more. I don't know. Just be a little bit nicer to one another and kind.
I don't know if social media had anything to do with this particular case, but social media is the worst thing in the world. And I use it a lot. I use Twitter a lot. We all do, but I hate it. And I it's never going to go away. No. People are making too much money off it for them to give it up. But man, that if I was in a sports organization, that's something that I'd be focusing heavily on, is social media and how your athletes are using it. And as I say, I don't know if it contributed in this case, who knows, but man, it's a bloody awful thing a lot of the time. Sometimes it's great. Mate. And you get in conversations, and that's probably what brings us back. You get in conversations with people, like-minded people who like sport and whatever it might be, and you get in conversations about certain things, and you can make jokes and that sort of things. But man, 75% even more of the time, it's an awful place full of awful people who are just there to make you feel like shit, for want of a better word. Excuse my language, but that's what it is a lot of the time, and it is sad. And so if I was a sporting organisation, I'd be sitting back and going, right, we need to figure out the best way about making our athletes safe in terms of the social media use.
And touching on bits of what you both just said, the weekend warrior, the guy that plays Capital Division 3 football in Wellington or, local league in Auckland, who goes out and plays their game on a Saturday afternoon. They liken themselves to top athletes, and they say, I lost on the weekend, but it doesn't bother me. So why is it bothering them so much? Because they've never been exposed to that level of sport. And the other thing is, these people are making their livings through this, so the pressure is amplified tenfold. If they don't get selected, in Olivia's case, if they don't get selected, all of a sudden their income is zapped.
It's their income. It's their income, but it's also their identity. I think this is that they're almost like, I am a cyclist and that's what I am. And when they lose, if they don't make or a rugby league player or whatever. And if they don't make the team or they don't make the thing, they think that's it. My life is finished. It's like, it doesn't help that that's their identity. You've got to realize that you're way more as a human being. But when you're young and you're striving for this one thing and that's all you want in the world, it's so easy to sort of separate that and just say, that's all I am. You put your blinkers on and you go for it. It's easier when you've reached a stage in our life where you've had a few hard knocks and you sort of, you have the experience to deal with that. But as a young person, Christ, mate, we've all felt desperate. And,
One last thing I'll just say on this is that, and as again, I don't know, but Cycling New Zealand and High Performance Sport New Zealand putting out this joint release saying that, this is going to be an independent review. Well, it has to be. And it someone had to put out the release, I suppose, but man, this has to be fully independent. There can't be any input on the results of it from either of those organizations. No. This just has to be entirely from the outside, interviewing people inside, but the results have to come in completely from the outside. Otherwise, we're never going to get the full picture of what's going on here.
Quite right. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Beautiful. Okay, let's cheer things up a little bit, shall we?
Yes, quite right. And I can safely say that I was very happy at about 9 o'clock on Saturday evening after the All Blacks had pummeled the Wallabies into submission 57-22 to retain the Bledisloe Cup. But the thing that bothered me the most about it was that it was only in front of about 25,000 spectators at Eden Park.
Yeah, that was
Do we
weird.
give the NZRU a pass because it was a late change, or should they lowered ticket prices? You're looking at $80 for the nosebleeds and $220 for premium. That's a lot of money to be going to a game of rugby.
$80 when you've just had the same team play you last
the week before.
A team that, let's be honest, 95% of us knew the result going into the match. I'm sorry, but that's just, that doesn't work for me. And that's $80 for the cheapest ticket. And then once you take your kids along, once you go with your partner or whatever it might be, that's $250.
Easy.
Easy.
I mean, it could be 500 if you got kids. I mean,
yeah, buy food, buy beer, whatever it might be. That's an expensive night. And as I say, for a team that you probably know the result against, you've just played them last week. Something had to be done differently. I know Wellington was booked out and all that sort of stuff, and it was a challenging time in terms of the Trans-Tasman bubble, but there had to be a better way. And, you know, an even bigger kind of point to this, I think, is that I think rugby's a dying sport at the moment. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge for New Zealand rugby right now, is that they need to figure out a way to get the crowds back and to get people interested in the game again. There are so many issues with rugby. The rules are so convoluted. I think the way the All Blacks go about things is very arrogant. I struggle with how they come across. No, I'm okay with saying it. I struggle with how they come across. I mean, look, let's be honest. Compare them to the Olympic athletes, man, I'd take the Olympic athletes any day of the week. You get the same stuff from the All Blacks. It's so boring. I think they need to change the way they do that. From a media point of view, they need to give us something more than 15 minutes of filming time at the start of training where literally the players are stretching and standing around and talking. I mean, that's not going to give us anything interesting to sell the game. And on top of that, I think there's a massively broad issue here. And that's concussion in rugby and adults not wanting their kids to be playing the sport that could kill them. And that's just the ugly truth of rugby at the moment. You know, it might not kill you on the spot, but we're seeing evidence now that it can drastically shorten your life if you get concussion after concussion after concussion. And that for me is an issue that is going to be massively in the spotlight, maybe not in the next 5 years, but certainly sometime in the next 20 years, that is going to become very apparent. And it already is, but it's only going to get bigger. And that, for me, is the biggest challenge that they face.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Guy, because one thing I was going to talk about a little later on in the show, but we'll do it now, is that there's some pretty influential figures in world rugby, including the IRB chairman or president, Bill Beaumont, are saying that they want to get rid of substitutes in rugby, tactical substitutions, and just go back to the days of injury substitutions. And what they're meaning around that is you've got fully fit 120 kilo players coming off the bench, tackling players who have already been on the field for 60 minutes and are tiring and are probably not quite as sharp as they were at the beginning of the game. And that's causing injuries. It's an interesting take on that.
Yeah, I think it's one step that would certainly help. As you say, I mean, physics tells you if you've got a person weighing 120 kilograms fresh running at a person at 120 kilograms fresh, or even running at someone who's tired, it's not going to end well.
No.
90% of the time, if things go wrong there, it's not going to end well. And so, yeah, I think that's one step to take, absolutely. And, you know, I think tackling lower and all that sort of stuff is a way to go about it. But, you know, these rugby players, and I do give them some sort of leeway here. They can't just change their habits overnight. This isn't going to be something that's just going to happen. It's going to take a lot of coaching, a lot of work, you know, a lot of technique changes, that sort of thing, to make the relevant switch, to make the sport safer. And we've gone off on a massive tangent, but I do think this is a big part of the reason as to why young kids particularly are turning off the game, because their parents don't want them to play the game.
Just to go back to your point, though, where you said you think it's a dying game. I mean, I'm just looking at me, case in point. 20 years ago, on a Friday evening, I would be so up for the Super Rugby. I'd be like, right, the Blues are playing, you know, I'd be all in. Now, I don't even know who's playing. I don't know what the score, you know, I don't know what. Who's leading the conference? You know, it's so confusing as far as the table goes.
And I think you'd be in the majority there.
Yeah,
I think
I
I'm
used
like
to love
you.
it.
I'm like you. I the last time I watched a full, well, the NPC's on at the moment. I don't know the last time I watched a full NPC game. Man, it would be a long time ago.
So they need to engage people like you and me. I mean, I still love rugby. Don't get me wrong, but I just got lost along the way as far as the Super Rugby and the provincial rugby. Now there's so many. I just make it simpler for me to understand. Make there less teams. Get me engaged in some provincial side of it, so that there's some sort of patriotism or provincialism involved, and get me back to the games. But I think you've got to make it simpler in that regard. You know, it is a dying game. You need to go back to what worked, and what worked was when it was nice and simple. We got a 12-team NPC. I can see Auckland's at the top, and they're playing Canterbury, who are fourth. You know, it's a fight for the top four. I mean, now it's like they're in this team, even though they're on the same table, and if they beat them, they'll come up to the conference. Oh, I'm just over it, mate. And then the rules and the referees, some just interpretations all over the place. And then, oh yes, he hit him just above the nipple, and he's off for 10 minutes, and now that's ruined. I'm just sorry. I just disengaged, and I turn on the league. I mean, at least I know there's 5 tackles. He's going to kick the bloody ball, you know. Call me simple, but
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Oh no, both of you are exactly right. And you know, why could the NZRU have not said last Friday, or when they announced the second game, half price tickets?
Exactly. I mean, I saw the game. I was like, why? This is the emptiest I've ever seen for an All Blacks test.
Give
why
them
is
away.
that?
Give them to clubs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I turned to my wife and I said, I bet you it's because they've charged too much. I didn't know anything. I bet you, of course it was. Getting too greedy. I mean, sell them for $10 outside for walk-ups. I don't care. They'd get more money. I mean,
exactly.
It's
crazy.
Stupid. Yeah.
Anyway, talking about money, Lionel Messi is confirmed as a PSG player, earning 45 million euros as a sign-on bonus, as if he's not rich enough, and 45 million for the season. And PSG gained an extra 5 million Twitter followers instantly after a fiasco of a tearful farewell at Barcelona. How did it get to this, that the best player in the world has to leave the club he loves against his wishes, and a PSG an absolute lock for the Champions League title?
Well, I haven't really followed it, to be honest. It just kind of appeared all of a sudden because I was so engrossed in the Olympics, and then all of a sudden Lionel Messi was leaving. I was like, what? So I don't know the full ins and outs, but I think Barcelona couldn't afford it anymore or something. Is that
right? Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, Barcelona.
In debt.
Yeah, Barcelona.
Yeah.
110. What is it? 110% of their
1.35 billion in debt.
Yeah, so 110% of their annual income goes on player wages. So that's untenable. Even if they cut Lionel Messi's wages by 50%, they were still going to be 5% over. So they got rid of him altogether. Even if he played for nothing, they were still going to be over. So this is why all these people that said, why does he just play for nothing? Well, he can't. And the worst thing was he was actually out of contract. They have a first in, last out sort of policy in La Liga. So because they didn't register him prior to July 1st, he's actually the last player into the club. So he has to be the first one out based on the way that the La Liga do their register. It's just so messy. And now, if you'll excuse the pun, and now PK has had to take a wage drop to get Depay in, who are the new signings that they couldn't register because, mate, it's just an absolute dog's breakfast. They are basically complete. If they went to the Dragons, we were talking about this before, weren't we, Mac? If you were the Barcelona club president and you went to like the Dragons Den and you said, this is my thing, I've got the best player in the world, I've got all these things, all these people turn up, they went to look at your books and they said, hang on, 110% of your income is going for the player wage. You better look at a different business, son. You know, you just cancel this thing, go and work on something else. I just do not understand how Barcelona can continue and how you get rid of your best player and how he doesn't want to leave, but you have to kick him out the door, even though he'll play for nothing. And then PSG paying 45 million euros as a sign-on and 45 million for the season. I know it's just eye-watering figure. I don't know. It's just...
Yeah. And
Yeah.
FIFA's got this thing called financial fair play.
Financial fair play. Fair play, pay the man. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. Football's a mess.
Yeah, football is a mess. We thought rugby was a mess. Football's a mess.
Absolutely.
We've just been talking about how we're losing interest in rugby, and now Spark Sports confirmed it now has the Champions League rights for the next 3 years, as well as the Premier League. They've got a host of cricket, all sorts of other sports now. How long before you cancel your Sky account?
Well, yeah, in my job, I kind of need both.
Yeah.
So I probably won't be cancelling it, but I can understand why others would. Look, at the moment, Sky's still got the two big ones, I guess, outside of cricket. They've still got rugby and they've still got league.
Yeah.
And until they lose one of them, maybe even if they were to keep the other, they'll be fine. Let's be honest, they're never going to lose rugby now because they're essentially a shareholder of New Zealand Rugby, and so, or is New Zealand Rugby a shareholder of them, whatever way it is, but someone's got shares in the other one, and so they're always going to be in bed together, aren't they? There's no way that that's going to end. So Sky will be around for still a lot longer. In saying that, it's a change in the landscape, isn't it? And it's come at a pretty rapid rate of knots as well, ever since Spark took over cricket, and they were never just going to end there. But when they took over that, man, they've just started chipping away really, and it's been interesting to watch. Not ideal in terms of needing two subscriptions, but if it makes the other one cheaper by having that competition, then maybe it's a good thing for New Zealand sports.
But does it? That's the thing for me.
Well,
it's cost.
It doesn't for Sky at the moment, man.
Mate, Sky have never cut their costs. Let's be honest. They've been charging me over $100 a month for the last decade. So they have never given me.
And they will say to you, well, you can get the streaming option, which is however much a month.
Yeah,
I would much rather just still be able to use my TV and be able to flip channels. And so I should be able to choose that. I just want the sports channels and channel 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. And there should be a loyalty option and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes down to it, when you look at the cost and what you're getting for your product, 120 or whatever for Sky, as opposed to, what is it for Spark? $20 a month?
$29.95.
So, there's no real, for me, all I want to see is the league. Really, that's the main reason I have the Sky. Once the league season's over, what's my key benefit for having Sky?
Why can't we get like a 10 channel package?
Exactly.
And you choose your 10 channels.
Exactly. Because Sky would then have to give up on their little movie channels and so they wouldn't get as much money. That's the thing. I'd love to see, man, we're going off on a tangent again. Sports. I would love to see a survey of how many people watch movies on Sky these days. Yeah. I would say it would be in the 10. It would be in the tens. Absolutely. Yeah. It'd be very, very few. It'd be, Nana and Granddad up in Orewa. That's who it is. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, and we got one more big issue before we let you go, Guy, and enjoy your quarantine, because I know you've got plenty on today. I'm loving it. You've got crossword puzzles to do. Going to go about 3 meters that way and lie on the bed. Yeah, exactly. Our final issue is Chris Cairns remains in a serious yet stable condition in an Australian hospital after cardiovascular surgery. Geez, we've got all the uplifting issues this week, don't we? We just had an update on Chris, actually. Oh, have we? From his lawyer, who's kind of the spokesperson for the family. Yes. This is breaking news into the podcast. Love it. I'm pleased to advise that Chris is off life support and has been able to communicate with his family from a hospital in Sydney. He and his family are thankful for all the support and well wishes from everyone and for the privacy they have been afforded. They request that this continues as they focus on his recovery moving forward. So that's awesome. Some good news that he is off life support and is hopefully, it would seem on the way to some sort of recovery. That's great. Well, his legacy in cricket was obviously somewhat soured after match fixing allegations. I was thinking, what are your favourite Chris Cairns memories, guys? That 100 that he scored in the Champions Trophy final in Nairobi, that would have to be right up there. What an innings that was. It was in 2000, wasn't it? I was 10 at the time. And so I don't really remember a lot of it, but I've seen highlights from it. I do remember New Zealand winning, and I remember it just being a massive story at the time. What else?
Do you know what? And this hasn't really been spoken about, and I know why, because they obviously lost the match, and because Nathan Astor took the highlights away, took the limelight away, and took the headlines away. But if Chris Cairns wasn't there, essentially on one leg for that innings, and scored, I think he scored 50 odd maybe, or
Something
30
like
odd,
that,
something
yeah.
like that. But he was around for a few hours. If he hadn't done that on one leg, severely injured, Nathan Astor never would have got that 222.
Yep.
And I was there for every ball of that double century from Nathan Astor. So I was there for every ball of Chris Cairns' innings, and that was that was a phenomenal effort from him to be able to do that. Never gets really talked about, and for obvious reasons, but that was a sensational innings. And then he was just a different player to kind of anyone in that era. He was incredibly, what's the word?
Athletic.
That wasn't the word I was thinking of. He was quite deceptive with the ball. He was very, the way that he bowled, he had so many variations that I think were ahead of his time. And then he was so destructive with the bat but also, quite technically sound and quite calculated as well. And, as I say, I do think he was ahead of his time. And I think, unfortunately, everything that kind of went on after his international career will probably sully and tarnish what happened on the pitch. But if we take everything else away and we just look at what he achieved on the cricket pitch, he is one of our greatest cricketers of all time.
Absolutely.
And I don't think, when we look back at who are our best cricketers, I don't think that should come into the equation. I think the guy is just an incredible talent, and everything else that's happened. Look, he was found not guilty, so we've got to go with that.
Yep.
Technically, he didn't really do anything. He didn't do anything, judging by the courts. And so, we should just be sitting back and appreciating what he brought to us in terms of what he did on the park, because it was a special career.
Macca?
Yeah, a couple of memories from me. Was an innings in Brisbane, I think it was. It was one of the World Series competitions against South Africa, and he came in and we were 4 for 30 or something.
Dead and buried. I remember.
Just another top order collapse, eh?
Yeah. And I can't remember who stuck around with him. Might have been Craig McMillan stuck around for a wee while, but Kenzie just went absolutely ballistic with the bat and scored 110, 120 off about 80 balls. And
I remember that innings.
We won the game.
Yeah, we did.
And it was just...
It was chasing down the runs too, was it? Second innings.
Chasing runs,
I remember.
Yeah. And under the lights at the Gabba.
Yeah.
For New Zealand. So
he could just do that. He could just change the game. That's what it was.
It was a bowling performance of his against, I think it was the West Indies at Seddon Park in Hamilton, where he just absolutely West Indies had gone in overnight at 100 or 300 for one, or 290 for one, or something like that, and we got them all out for less than 400. And Kenzie got 5 or 6 that day, and his bowling was just, the West Indian batsmen just didn't know what to do with him.
Beautiful. My memories of Chris Cairns, obviously, because when he started, of course, he was the son of, wasn't he? He was the son of Lance, and everyone. Lance Cairns was, for those that aren't cricket initiated, he was like the common man's. He was everyday man's cricketer. He was the country cricketer, but everyone loved him because he hit the big sixes, and he'll never be as good as his dad. His dad was a legend, So everyone sort of said, well, he'll always be the son of, and he burst out of that shadow really fast, didn't he?
He did.
He just went, oh my God, this guy's way better than his dad, So that was the thing for me, is that he became Chris Cairns rather than son of. And also the fact, when I was about 17 years old as a young boy at Westlake Boys High School, he came as about a 15-year-old and cleaned me up neck and crop. Didn't even see it, mate. So there you go. I was bowled by Chris Cairns a long, long time ago. And he was only like 14, 15 years old. And my God, he was quick then. I was bloody scared. So there you go. I don't mind saying that. There you go.
Excellent. Well, that's our big issues for this week. And it's been great.
It's been awesome.
Guy Heveldt and to talk us through the Olympics. Some amazing memories you've got there that you'll talk to your grandchildren about one day. And just thanks so much for your time.
Got my little Olympic torch here.
Oh, look at that.
Some ridiculous amount of money.
Beautiful. $1 billion yen.
So,
probably.
big thanks to Guy Heveldt. And this is the second time you've been on the show, so we'll make sure we get you back a little
official
later
friend of the
on,
show now,
in the
mate.
year, and we'll keep you
I
on as a
I
regular
passed the
guest.
test.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
quite right.
your badge is in the mail.
Thanks for your input, and all the best for those last few days in MIQ.
Thanks, fellas. No, always nice to chat. And yeah, some interesting discussions today. Great to relive some memories of the Olympics, and something that'll stick with me forever. That's for sure. So nice to talk about it with you, fellas.
Cheers, Guy.
Cheers, bro.
Good on you. Cheers, boys.
Well, great insight there from Guy Heveldt of the Olympics, and as I mentioned, I thought he did an absolutely superb job over there, and it was a pleasure to have him on the show.
Absolutely. Great to catch up with Guy. Hopefully he can come back on again later on once he's involved in his TVNZ sporting capacity. Always great to catch up and get that insight into what's going on.
Quite right.
So let's go to football, shall we, mate? Because the
Why not?
football kicked off over the Premier League, of course, our league of choice kicked off last weekend, and we were going to catch up last weekend, but due to other things, sickness and stuff, we missed out. But got a couple of quick questions before we kick this off. If Harry Kane goes to Man City, it looks like he may do because he wasn't available Man City against Tottenham. And Romelu Lukaku goes to Chelsea, which he has done now. That's been confirmed. Where's Erling Harland going to end up eventually, mate?
Well, I saw during the week that Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, the great German player, his brother Michael Rummenigge, believes that Erling Harland is going to go to Liverpool.
Okay, when? Tomorrow?
Well, I don't know.
Go on.
He seems to think that Liverpool is the best fit for Erling Haaland.
Okay.
Have to wait and see on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Rummenigge. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll take him anytime.
Quite
Chelsea
right.
won the Super Cup after their keeper was a substitute, and he actually came on this time. He didn't refuse to come off. He came on, and they won the penalty shootout against Villarreal. Did you see any of that?
I didn't actually. We were hightailing it around the South Island on a wee break, so I didn't quite catch up with that one. But good result for Chelsea. I think we're going to talk about the Premier League in a minute, but I think they're going to be up there challenging for the title this year. I think Thomas Tuchel has got quite a good side together, especially with Lukaku coming back. So good start to the season for them.
Okay, let's go. Let's do, obviously the season's already kicked off. What do you want to do? Do you want to go through the teams as we go through and sort of say how let's do that way, eh? Let's start at the top. Let's start with Arsenal, okay? They had their first game, and they kicked off as we thought they probably would against Brentford, who are the newly promoted side. And once again, they kicked off with a loss in the season, 2-0 loss. Poor old Arsenal. They had a 50 million addition of Brighton and Hove Albion defender Ben White. Everyone thought that was the sort of statement that they needed, but he got bullied for a couple of the goals, got pushed around, and a couple of one of them was from a long throw-in. It was a terrible goal to concede, and poor old Arsenal. They've still got the youngsters Bukayo Saka, and I thought Emil Smith-Rowe looked really, really good. Aubameyang and Lacazette both had COVID, has come out in the press since then, and of course
positive COVID tests.
And of course, the jury still remains out on manager Mikel Arteta. What did you think of their first game, and what are you thinking of Arsenal?
I thought they were absolute rubbish, and well played to Brentford. They did exactly what they needed to do, and got the result they needed. Aston Villa, how are they going to cope with the loss of their talisman, Jack Grealish? That's to be the key question, despite Dean Smith splashing out on Danny Ings, Leon Bailey, and Emi Buendia to add to the attacking options. And the return of Ashley Young. He's about 64 now.
55, yeah, he's about my age.
To add some much-needed experience. You can probably expect another mid-table finish as Villa consolidate their Premier League status.
And how did they kick off?
They kicked off with a loss to Watford, 3-2.
So, they got ahead, and then they conceded a few goals. I thought they played okay. Grealish, though. Grealish is the big question for them. Are they going to be able to cope with him? So, we'll keep an eye on Aston Villa, but they didn't kick off too well. Brentford, the newly promoted team. They are now officially the 50th team to play in the Premier League, and their Danish manager, Thomas Frank, said that he believed that their enterprising approach can cause some shocks. Well, they sure did against Arsenal, beat them 2-0 in the first game. They'll need their star striker, Ivan Toney, to bring his 33-goal form from last season. Well, he did. He scored a goal, and the Bees certainly deserved their chances after some agonising near misses in the promotion stakes the last few years. They kicked off with a hiss and a roar, 2-0 win against Arsenal. Good on Brentford. I think they'll go okay this year.
Yeah, I think they'll do all right. They'll certainly stay in the division, I think. Brighton, easy on the eye last season, but only managed to finish 16th with 41 points. They'll feel the loss of Ben White, who you just talked about, but have enough defensive cover in Lewis Dunk, Adam Webster, and Dan Byrne. And Yves Bissouma is one of the best midfield players in the league. He's a very good player, and he's still attracting several admirers. Would help if they could get rampaging wingback Tariq Lamptey fit. Now, Brighton, they had a win, if I'm not mistaken.
They did have a win. They did have a win. Yep, they did have a win. They won. They had a comeback win, actually. They were behind, and they came back. Where are we? Brighton. Oh, anyway, 2-1. They beat someone. Graham Potter, though, I like him as a coach. They play a nice passing style, and all they really need is a guy up front to bang in the goals. So I think Brighton will go okay this year as well. Burnley. Chris Wood's Burnley, not been much significant transfer movement under the new owners, ALK, but they're smart enough to know the value in keeping their manager, Sean Dyche, sweet. He's probably the key to keeping Burnley up because he's done it very efficiently over the last few years. They recovered from an awful start last year to finish 11 points clear of trouble and have just enough now and fight a very good pros led by Bed Me, James Tarkowski, keeper Nick Pope, and of course, Kiwi Chris Wood. You reckon they'll stay above the waterline?
Well, I think they will. I think they are going to struggle for long periods of the season. But
they lost to Brighton. They're the team that lost to Brighton.
Yes.
Yeah, they got the first goal and then conceded a couple.
Yeah, I've picked them to stay up, but only just. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Chelsea, perhaps the team most likely to threaten title winners Manchester City. I might slightly disagree with that one. I think there'll be a team in red that will give them a good run as well.
That's the one.
Whom they beat with a perfectly tactical display in the Champions League final. This is a multi-talented squad, but they were only the 8th highest scorers in last season's Premier League.
Yep.
Romelu Lukaku has arrived from Inter for around 98 million to solve that problem. The Belgian is no longer the callow kid who failed to fire in his first spell at Stamford Bridge. Though where that leaves last summer's big signing, Timo Werner, is another question.
Out on the left.
That's
where it leaves him. But they started with a good win. They beat Crystal Palace 3-0. And Crystal Palace, of course, big season of change there. Patrick Vieira took over from Roy Hodgson, and the club has had a bit of a makeover. Lots of guys leaving on frees, about a dozen players had come to the end of their contracts. Star man Wilfred Zaha is still there. Reborn Christian Benteke scored a few goals at the end of last season. And crucially, they've added a couple of good defenders in Joachim Anderson and Mark Gui, as well as a promising teenage playmaker, Michael Olise. But it is an acid test for Patrick Vieira. First time coaching in the Premier League. I would be surprised to see him still the manager at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think they're going to struggle big time, I think, this year.
I think so.
And could be one of the candidates for the bottom three. In fact, I think both of us have picked that, but we'll have a closer look at that. Across Stanley Park in Liverpool, the Blues of Everton. Carlo Ancelotti jumped ship for Real Madrid, and in comes Rafa Benitez, who some Toffees fans will never forgive for calling them a small club when he was managing Liverpool over a decade ago. Can Rafa win over his critics, or will there be turmoil at Goodison Park for a team that rather faded into 10th place last season? Nothing has happened yet in the transfer market. Makes you believe they can improve on that. New signing Damari Gray still has to prove he can cut it as a top-flight regular, though winger Andros Townsend might get a new lease of life on Merseyside. And their result last week, they had a 3-1 win, but it's the first time they've come from behind to win a Premier League game in over a decade.
Crazy. Crazy. It'll be an interesting season there. I mean, especially with Rafa there. I think the fans are just waiting to sort of turn up their toes a little bit just wait for their first couple of losses and see how they react. Leeds crowned a superb return to the top flight after a ninth place finish last season, and of course Marco Bielsa's back for another year. They may be hit by a second season syndrome, and it looked like it. Classy, articulate Patrick Bamford could force his way into the England reckoning, and Junior Firpo was signed from Barcelona for 13 million. He's a classy fullback, but they didn't look very classy in their first game against Man United, and they got thrashed, didn't they? 4-1, 5-1, 5-1. The goal that
the one was pretty outstanding.
It was an amazing goal, wasn't it? Fantastic.
Erling absolutely smashed it.
But I think they'll come right. They got smashed by United last year at Old Trafford, 6-1, I think it was. So I back Bielsa to get them humming before too long.
Quite right. On to Leicester City. A broken leg in pre-season for the Foxes' outstanding young defender, Wesley Fofana, is a terrible blow, and it may leave them a little thin at the back. Despite missing out on the top four again, that first FA Cup win made it a triumphant season. Patson Daka, Bubakari Samari, and Ryan Bertrand are great additions to Brendan Rodgers' options, and he still has all his big hitters on board. Harvey Barnes is back from injury and is fresh off signing a new 4 or 5 year contract. And James Justin is progressing nicely. Will fancy themselves for a long run in the Europa League, and why not?
Yeah, man. I mean, they're going to be pushing the top four, I think. I think they're going to be the closest team to the top four from outside the top four for me. Liverpool, our beloved Liverpool, mate. Intriguing to see if we see the old Liverpool return after last season's shenanigans with all the injuries and everything that went on. They did well to finish third in the end. The return of Virgil van Dijk and the £36 million signing of Ibrahima Konate will certainly give us a more solid look at the back. But Curtis Jones will be interesting to see if he can step into Gini Wijnaldum's boots, because we haven't signed a midfielder as of yet to replace him. There's also the cloud of the contract dispute with captain Jordan Henderson hanging over the preseason. I've heard a rumour he may be about to sign those, so I think that's too far away. For me, Liverpool have to be challenging. They'll be up in the top four, no doubt. Can they push Man City, though? That's the question.
Yeah, I think they can. I think now that they've almost got Jordan Henderson across the line, looks like Mohamed Salah's about to sign a new contract as well. So most of the off-season business has been re-signing players. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, Fabinho, Alisson have all signed new contracts. I think one of the players we're going to see a big season from, and I just hope he can stay injury-free, is Nabby Keita. I always like the look of this guy when he's been fully fit. He can absolutely run the show from midfield, and with Thiago back there as well, it's going to be an interesting midfield that turns out against Burnley on Saturday. But I hopeful, or I'm think from what I've seen, we can be okay with the loss of Gini Wijnaldum. I think we've got plenty enough players to cover as long as the dreaded injury bug doesn't strike like it did last year. So I've got them winning the league this year.
And you're happy with how we played against Norwich? Of course, we beat Norwich 3-0. The clean sheet was probably the best part of that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. The just the presence of Virgil van Dijk in that back line, and a stat that came out of that game that I didn't realise until the other day was that Joel Matip has only ever played in one Liverpool loss.
Yeah. Crazy, eh? It just shows you, I mean, and that's another guy that just needs to stay fit. I mean, he's 100% classy. I'd have him next to Virgil all day, every day, ahead of all the other centre-backs we've got. But he just seems to get injured every season. So him and Nabby Keita, I mean, big seasons for both of them, just need to stay fit all season. Nabby Keita, you're right. He is someone that from the midfield could run the show. He just needs to stay fit, get a run of games, and he could be an anchor for us in midfield. Imagine him, Fabinho, and either Henderson and Thiago. Mate, that's as good as anything in the Premier League. So
I think the only disappointing one for me from that game against Norwich, I thought Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was given a really good chance to prove his worth, but I think he had quite a quiet game. In saying that, the ball didn't really run his way a lot. But normally when he's on song, he goes looking for the ball, and I didn't see that from him. last weekend. But anyway, Manchester City is next on our list. An embarrassment of riches. How will Pep Guardiola fit Grealish in? The Englishman's ability to run with the ball, draw fouls, and set up chances would enhance any team. He is a unique talent. And if Kane arrives as well, City's attack would take on a frightening look, with the likes of Sterling, Foden, and Mahrez battling for the other places, as well as Bernardo Silva probably on his way out. Remember, too, that Kevin De Bruyne has started only 23 Premier League games last season and should be back to his magnificent best. We didn't see the best of him at the Euros, but put a blue shirt on him and give him a good pair of legs, and he's going to run the show for them. City were champions by 12 points last season, but this year I think will be a lot closer.
And yeah, they didn't start well. They lost 1-0 in their
1-0 to Spurs
in their first game. And if it showed anything, that game showed anything. It showed that they need a striker, and the striker that Spurs didn't have in their side either, because Harry Kane decided, oh no, I'm going to sit this one out. Where do you think Harry Kane's going to end up before the transfer window slams shut, mate? Is he going to end up at City, or will he be at Tottenham?
I think he'll still be at Tottenham.
I think so too, because Daniel Levy just ain't going to sell for the money. Yeah. He's just going to ask for the money. I just don't think City will pay it. If they do pay it and they end up paying all that money, like $250 million for two players, I just think that's mad. They could have got Harland for half of that. So Kane's 28, 29. Yeah, for me, I would love it, actually, quite frankly, if they go get Kane, because it would leave Mbappe and Harland for Liverpool to snatch later on. Let's go to our biggest rival, mate, Man United. The club have issued a big vote of confidence to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and handed him an extended contract to 2024, although why, I've got no idea. They've also funded transfers for Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane. Marcus Rashford's out for 2 months with a shoulder problem for the start of the season. Looks like Sancho may have a chance to show off some of his sensational talents, while Varane and Harry Maguire looks a winning pair at the back. If Bruno Fernandes bounces back from his poor Euros, looked like he did. He got a hat-trick in the first game. United should be in the mix at the top of the table. Usual uncertainty over Paul Pogba, although he played absolutely amazing in that game. 4 assists in their winner over Leeds. Well, how do you think United will go this year, mate?
I don't care.
Beautiful.
Okay, they'll be top 4.
Let's move on to Newcastle then.
Club in seemingly endless turmoil, they nevertheless recovered to finish 12th last season, as Steve Bruce answered as many Toon critics. They need to keep Callum Wilson fit and seal the deal with Arsenal for Joe Willock, which they've done, whose flurry of goals proved vital at the end of last season. They've been quiet in the transfer market so far. They're going to be middle to bottom half. I think they'll be all right.
I think so. I think they'll be all right. Alain Saint-Maximin, his performance was just phenomenal against West Ham. He turned Rice so many times. He turned him into a risotto, mate. I mean, it was ridiculous. Yeah, he's a great player. I would love to see him at Liverpool. He's about the only piece of flair Newcastle have got, though, so we'll let him hold on to him. They'll be okay, mid-table for me. Norwich, they bounced back to the top flight for the first time of asking. Championship winners they were, and they kept faith with their manager, Daniel Farke. They've lost main chance creator Buendia to Aston Villa, but they've done very well to acquire Chelsea's excellent young midfield man, Billy Gilmore, on loan, who played quite well against Liverpool. They've been a little bit more ambitious in the transfer market than their last trip to the Premier League, but it looks like a relegation fight for the yo-yo mob at Norwich. They were not that good against Liverpool, but there were probably extenuating circumstances. They had a number of COVID absentees in the week leading up, a lot of things going on at Norwich. I think I'm not sure. They'll be fighting, but I've got confidence in their manager.
Yeah, he's a very good manager. He's very switched on. As you say, they came straight back into the top flight after just one season and did it fairly easily. Obviously, he's not going to find it so easy in the Premier League as he's found before. And yeah, I think they're going to be in a struggle for keeping their place, as are, I think, Southampton are going to struggle this year.
Yeah.
The sudden sale of striker Danny Ings to Aston Villa will have sent off alarm bells for Saints fans. Reliable left-back Ryan Bertrand has gone to Leicester, and there will probably be bids for captain James Ward-Prowse, although I just see he has signed a new contract with the Saints, so it looks like he'll be sticking around for a bit longer. But unless they can beef up the squad between now and the end of August, I think the Saints are in danger of being surprise strugglers.
Yeah, they lost 3-1 to Everton on the first day too. So, yeah, I think they will struggle. I like their manager, but I just don't think selling your best players is the way to go. Tottenham looked like difficult times before last week in North London. So much hinging on the outcome of the Kane saga, of course. It's going to be an easy start. It's not going to be an easy start for Nuno Espirito Santo, but at least they've added Sevilla winner Bryan Gil for £47 million. Defender Christian Romero is also an expensive addition as Toby Alderweireld leaves. The less than glamorous new Europa Conference League is the price they pay for only finishing 7th last season. How they go about replacing Kane if he goes is crucial to their prospects, although Inter's Lautaro Martinez is being pursued, but they beat the champions on the first day, and now all things are looking rosy in the garden of Tottenham until they lose their next game, because that's just the way Tottenham go. That's because that's so Spursy. I mean, that's actually a term of, nowadays, isn't it? They're Spursy. It's a Spursy performance. They'll be okay, but they won't get anywhere near the Champions League. Poor old Spurs.
Poor old Spurs. Yeah, I think they're going to struggle again this year, even if they do keep hold of Harry Kane.
I think so. What about Watford, mate?
Watford, the precocious Club Brugge youngster Emmanuel Denise could make some waves as the Hornets return to the top flight. Former England left-back Danny Rose and Middlesbrough striker Ashley Fletcher are among other new arrivals, while the dangerous winger Ismail Assar is still there too. But it might be a long, hard winter at Vicarage Road. I can see them finishing clear of the relegation spots. I think they'll have a good season. They've got a very excitable new manager.
Isn't he cool?
I noticed on the highlights. I can't quite remember his name, but he certainly gave a very exciting Spanish interview at the end of the game, and if he can keep up that
enthusiasm
during the season, it could be quite entertaining.
Oh, it'll be entertaining with Watford. It always is, mate. West Ham, how are they going to cope with the Thursday-Sunday routine of matches as they prepare for the Europa League? It was certainly a bold showing last season. They finished 6th. Looked like they were going to make the Premier League spots there for a while. Led by Declan Rice, who looks like Chelsea were pursuing, but they may be holding off now that they've signed Lukaku. The likes of Thomas Souček and Michael Antonio. Mikel Antonio, what a player he is, mate. Massively underrated. And also, they're probably looking to get Jesse Lingard back from Manchester United. I don't know why Manchester United wouldn't let him go. He's not going to get a game for them. And looking like they're also trying to get Kurt Zuma from Chelsea or Marseille's Duje Kalatakar. I expect the busy late August from David Moyes' side in the transfer market. They started with us in a roar, beating Newcastle on their first day, and I think they'll finish top half of the table for me, David Moyes' side. But I don't think they'll finish as high as they did last year.
The last team that we're going to talk about is Wolverhampton Wanderers. Yep. Last season was a wake-up call as they slipped to 13th with only 45 points after 2 successive 7th-place finishes. The Nuno era is over. He's rebuilding Tottenham now, and Bruno Lage has come in. At least top striker Raul Jimenez is fit after suffering a horrific fractured skull last season. There have been a few low-key signings, but it might be a difficult year again unless the exciting young Pedro Neto and Adama Traore, if he stays, can form an effective supply line for Jimenez. One problem with that, I've seen Neto is now out injured for a couple of months. Just announced this morning. And winger Francisco Trincao from Barca could excite the fans at Molineux. I've actually got Wolves struggling this year. I just think losing their manager and just the quiet business that they've not really done in the transfer window. I can't see them finishing. They definitely won't finish any higher than they did last year. And I've actually got them, finishing in the bottom quarter.
Yeah, you have. Okay, so let's go through these. We've got a predicted final table, and actually they're quite different. Our top 4 are the same, but in different orders. Mine goes number 1, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United. What about you?
Yeah, I've gone with my heart. Liverpool to win, having a full squad back. I've got Chelsea second. I've got Man City finishing third, and United fourth. And I've got Leicester coming in fifth for the third season in a row.
We've both got Leicester coming in fifth. Chelsea for me in second. We've both got Chelsea in second. I just love the signings they've made. I think they've got a good coach. If Frank Lampard was still coach, I wouldn't have them up at second. But I think they are comers. They are definite challengers for the title this season. Okay, so we've both got Leicester at fifth.
Yep, I think probably sixth to probably about 15th. You could really put put them in any order there. So let's just concentrate on the relegation battle.
Okay, let's go 17th to 20th, shall we?
Yep.
See who I've got. Okay, 17th place, just missing the drop, Brentford, because I think, well, I wrote my list prior to the first game. So I've got Brentford missing the drop. I think they'll be fine. 18th, I've got Crystal Palace. I think Roy leaving and having a brand new manager there and losing so many players, I think they're going to really struggle this year. I've got them going down. I've got Burnley going down this season. I just don't think they've made enough signings. If Sean Dyche, maybe he can pull some magic out, but I just think Burnley, to me, just look like a championship team. And Southampton, I've got right down the bottom as well. I just don't think you can sell that many players without getting relegated or paying some sort of piper. So for me, my three relegated are Crystal Palace, Burnley, and Southampton.
Yeah, so I've got fairly similar. I think Burnley will just survive in the last game of the season. Chris Wood will get the winner, and it'll help them stay up. I, like you, have got Crystal Palace in 18th. Okay. It's going to be a tough beginning to the season. Patrick Vieira, there's a bit of unknown around him as it's his first job as manager, and certainly in England. I've got Southampton finishing in 19th. Just as we talked about, selling off your best player just is not a good look, and I don't think it's going to work on the field for them either. And I've actually got Norwich finishing bottom. They've got a very similar squad. It's almost exactly the same squad as they had 2 seasons ago, minus Emi Buendia, who was one of their more creative players. Yep. And I just can't see them competing, and really in patches last week against Liverpool. I know Liverpool played well, but they just seemed a bit bereft of what to do when they didn't have the ball.
What we can say about those 6 teams, bottom 6, we've only got one team that's been promoted, going back down. So that'll be good. That will be a good thing. I think that the teams that get promoted stay up for at least another season. So the only team we've got is Norwich. You've got them bottom, but I've got them finishing 15th, so I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, well, I've got Brentford in 16th.
Yeah.
And Watford, I've got them as high as 13th. But as I said, any one of those from sort of 7 to 15, you could really put them in any order.
Yeah.
I've got Wolves down at 15th. As I said, I don't think they're going to do that well this year. Okay,
so we'll put those aside and we'll look at them at the end of the season and see how we go. See who's the most successful. Let's go through. So that's our football. You got anything more to talk about on the football? Of course, Liverpool are playing Burnley.
They are
this weekend.
Yep.
How you think we'll go?
I'm picking a Liverpool win fairly easily. There was one big game that caught my eye. Yes, Arsenal-Chelsea at the Emirates on Monday morning, New Zealand time. That'll be an absolute cracker. It's one of those derby games where you can't really take previous form into account. And so, Arsenal-Chelsea, that'll be a good game. And Chelsea, of course, this is their second game of the season. Their third game of the season is against Liverpool at Anfield. So they've had a tough start. Yeah, well, I can see Arsenal getting thrashed in that game, to be fair, especially if Lacazette and Aubameyang aren't back, and 0 for 6, and the pressure's going to go right on Arteta then, isn't it? So shall we move to Rugby Union, mate? Let's rip through some of these, eh? We've been going on a little bit long. All Blacks pummeled the Wallabies. Of course, we talked a little bit about that earlier with Guy Heveldt, 57-22. Who stood out for you, mate? A lot of players stood out for me. I thought an interesting one was Dalton Papali. I thought he had a poor first half, But then if you just took the second half
and then he looked like Richie McCaw in the second half.
Somebody obviously must have said something to him at half time, because he came out all guns blazing and was just absolutely superb. Aaron Smith was his usual self. I thought Richie Mwanga stepped it up again. David Havili continues to impress me at second five.
Doesn't he? What?
I think if Jack Goodhue makes it back this year, I can't see him replacing David Havili at second five. So it will be very interesting to see what happens.
David Havili looks like Jack Goodhue with kicking skills, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Similar sort of players, but he's got a little bit of flair and finesse around the kicking. No, David Havili, God, he's just he's just been playing fantastic, shooting the lights out. For me, I mean, I love that All Black performance. I thought it was fantastic. I actually was feeling a little bit before the game. I was actually thinking, maybe Australia could actually do something here. It's been so long, and then at halftime, I'm thinking, maybe they will. Maybe, and then second half, great performance by the All Blacks.
Just blew them away, yeah. Yep. I was a little disappointed with Damian McKenzie at fullback. I'd love to see either Jordan or Geordie Barrett given a run there.
Me too.
15. The big question now remains is, are they going to be able to play the game in Perth? Because of us going into lockdown, anybody arriving in Perth from New Zealand is facing a 14-day lockdown.
So where are the Aussies? Are they flying back to Australia, or are they still here?
They've gone.
Should have stayed.
Rather than keep the All Blacks in a bubble, they let them go home for a week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So now they're stuck at home.
Which beggars the question. Which also beggars the question: why could they have not played that second Eden Park test at the Sky Stadium in Wellington on the Sunday?
Michael Jones was not available. I don't know. I don't know, mate. Listen, the Rugby Union, dude, look, the Rugby Union couldn't fill up the ground at Eden Park, okay? They couldn't do that. So why do you...
I thought the whole reason why they couldn't play on Sunday was because they were travelling straight to Perth, but they're not. Yeah. They've all gone home.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. No, I don't get the Rugby Union. I thought Guy Heveldt spoke some real good truth about the... Yeah, interesting. Anyway, we've the British and Irish Lions. They lost that final test against the Springboks 19-16 after that last-minute try to Mornay Stain. Looked like it could have been another drawn series for the Lions. It was the last few minutes, wasn't it? Yep. It looked like could be two drawn series in a row, but they
2017 all over again.
Yeah, but their referee was actually watching for an offside, and they got a kick to win the series, and they did that. Unlike the French referee in our New Zealand series 5 years ago. What about a quick NPC roundup? You got anything to say about the NPC? What's going on?
Yep. Good wins for Tasman over the weekend. They beat Auckland down in Nelson, 16-11. That was a great result from them. Canterbury bounced back from a loss to Auckland the previous week to beat Manawatu. I thought the result of the round, though, was Hawke's Bay absolutely thumping Otago in the Ranfurly Shield match at McLean Park. So a good win for them. This weekend's games have been postponed, obviously, because we're all still in level 4 till at least midnight tonight. Of course, Auckland and Coromandel will be staying at level 4. We still don't know yet what's happening with the rest of the country. But, so no games this week, and we have to wait for another week or so before the NPC gets started again. And I think that's about when the Heartland Championship will be starting up.
Beautiful.
Next week. So I think they were supposed to kick off this weekend, but that's been put off till next week.
All right, so we'll talk some more about that next week. Okay, let's go quickly through a little league watch. Peter Hiku and Dylan Watini-Zelaznia made their 150th NRL appearances when the Warriors played the Canterbury Bulldogs last Sunday, and prop Jackson Frey debuted as part of the Warriors team. We took care of them, no problem, 24-10. Kane Evans, Matt Lodge didn't play. Frey was he's the first Warrior, made his first Warriors appearance, partnering our captain Adam Whenua-Blake in the front row, and he became our 15th Warriors debutant this year and the 6th to make his NRL debut altogether this year. So it just shows you the amount of players we're using. Of course, we took down the Bulldogs 24-10. Really wasn't in doubt. We played really well, actually, for the third win in a row. The Warriors' late season train rolls on. It was an efficient 24-10 win and their third successive victory. And it's their first run of 3 victories since 2018. Does keep them in contention for the finals. Now, I've got a little bit of... I've done a little bit of work on this, just a little bit of work, because, you know me, I'm such a mathematician, especially when it comes down to the Warriors making the finals. They definitely remain outsiders. They need other results to fall their way, but they're going to cling to some hope. 2 points outside the top 8 at the moment. Just quickly on that Bulldogs match, loved Josh Curran. My God, that guy is looking like a champion. I think he ticked the box in every stat category. He made a line break, just did everything. He was just fantastic. And Adam Fanua-Blake dominated the middle part of the pitch. I thought both of those two were my player of the days on the day. So what do the Warriors need to do then? What do the Warriors need to do? Win their final remaining 3 games. Other things go their way. They could actually finish 7th. If you look at the table at the moment, the Knights are 7th and the Titans are 8th. But from the Knights, okay, so it goes Knights 7th, Titans 8th, then it goes the Raiders, Sharks, Dragons, Warriors, Tigers. Now, all of those teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, all of those teams can finish anywhere between 7th and 13th. There's only 3 games to go, and all of these are winnable as far as the Warriors go.
Yeah.
Broncos, Raiders, and Titans. So these are all teams sort of in the go, except for the Broncos, of course, which we have to win on Sunday. So there you go. So that's what the Warriors have to do. Win their final 3 games. Hope other things go their way. They can still finish as high as 7th. Just a couple of other rugby league things. Jacinda Ardern said she had no interest in allowing the second, the grand final at Eden Park. Well, that ain't going to be happening now anyway. So took the heat off her. The Melbourne Storm last night drew level with the 1975 Roosters for the most consecutive wins in the NRL with 19 straight after they came from behind 16-12 at halftime to beat the Titans 34-20. They remain at the top of the table. And some great games tonight, mate. Raiders versus Sea Eagles tonight, 8 p.m. and Panthers versus Rabbits at 10 p.m. That is an awesome doubleheader tonight, mate. Great doubleheader for a lockdown Friday night. Sunday, 6 p.m. for the Warriors versus the Broncos, if you want to catch the Warriors in action and their hunt for the top 8 in the NRL. That's my league rep, mate.
Quite right. Moving across the Pacific Ocean to the United States of America. And
for a bit of baseball.
And all I've got to say is, build it and he will come. Well, it actually happened. The Field of Dreams game. What an absolutely amazing event. They even had Kevin Costner and the players walking out from the cornfield in centre field.
Didn't that look awesome?
Oh, it just looked so good. And the game itself lived up to the billing. I mean, it was a walk-off win for the White Sox, which absolutely gutted me, of course, being a Yankees fan. But even despite that, I just had a smile on my face watching it. The setup was amazing. The guy who does all the fields for Major League Baseball, Murray Cook, has been out to New Zealand a couple of times, and I've met him, and he's just such a lovely, lovely guy. He organised changing the Sydney cricket ground into the Sydney baseball ground 7 years ago, and was first and foremost in setting up the Dyersville cornfield for the Field of Dreams game. And just the drama that went around it, and Kevin Costner being there, and it was just every baseball follower's dream to just see that eventuate.
I love the way you actually got it right. Build it and he will come. I always thought it was build it and they will come. It's one of those things you always get wrong, eh? But it looked like a movie. It looked phenomenal. And I've heard that they are actually talking about next year maybe making it different teams. Yeah,
Cubs and Reds will be playing next year.
Okay, so, has that been decided?
Yeah, that's been decided. But just absolutely fantastic for Major League Baseball.
Now there's an example of an institution getting things right, listening to the people and thinking, oh, they want this. Oh, that's an idea, and then running with it. And look at where it can take you, just a little bit of innovation, a little bit of thought outside the square.
Oh, the Americans are great at that. I mean,
they are.
A couple of years back, the Army-Navy basketball game, they played it on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Set up stands on the aircraft carrier.
And they do it in the ice hockey as well, the outside game. And they play it at like at the stadium, what is it, the Browns play it.
Yeah.
In Chicago. It's just,
they've done one at Yankee Stadium as well.
It's so good. It's just, they just think outside the square. I mean, imagine if they played a test match at Victoria Park in Auckland or something. You know what I mean? Like, just think what you could do. Anyway.
Come on, New Zealand rugby.
Come on.
American sport.
Exactly. What else is happening in the baseball, mate?
Oh, another absolute highlight during the week was Diamondbacks' Tyler Gilbert throws a no-hitter against the powerful San Diego Padres lineup in his first ever Major League Baseball start.
Wow.
He's pitched 9 innings, not given up a single hit. He's walked 3.
So retire.
He's walked up the park going, geez, this is easy. He's only the 4th person ever to do it in the history of Major League Baseball.
Unbelievable.
The last to do it was St. Louis Browns pitcher Bobo Holloman in 1953.
You remember that, Macca? You were there? Yeah.
The only other 2 times were in the 1800s. So,
unbelievable.
Just absolutely incredible.
What a season for the ages, stuff like this happening, man.
Oh, it is. And I mean, you look at the Diamondbacks, they've got the 2nd worst record in baseball at the moment. It's absolutely horrific. But having a look at the standings, if you'd noticed on our Facebook page, the Yankees,
I noticed you posted those. Someone was happy yesterday.
Yes, the Yankees have climbed into playoff position. They're still 5.5 games behind the Tampa Bay Rays, but if they win today against the Twins, that will take them back to 5 games back. But they're leading the wild card rankings, half a game ahead of Oakland, and thankfully Boston are out of the wild card standings at the moment. So if that remains the same, it would be fantastic. White Sox seemingly have got the American League Central tied up. They're 11.5 games ahead of the Cleveland Indians, or should I be saying the Cleveland Guardians? Houston have got a battle on their hands in the West. They're 2.5 games ahead of Oakland and only 5.5 games against Seattle. So that could go right down to the wire. In the National League, the New York Mets have had a horror run over the last week or so. They've lost 6 of their last 10 and have gone from the top of the table down to 3rd. The Atlanta Braves now lead by 4 games over Philadelphia, and the Mets a half game back. In the Central, Milwaukee seem to be running away with the Central there. They're 9.5 games ahead of Cincinnati, with St. Louis and Chicago well out of the race now. In the West, this is an interesting one because at the beginning of the season, when San Diego Padres were accruing all this marvelous talent from everywhere else around the league, everybody was saying, oh, yeah, it's going to be them and the Dodgers. Well, the Dodgers are 2nd and San Diego Padres are 3rd. Nobody thought about the San Francisco Giants.
No, they didn't.
They're having a great season and, excuse me, are 8-2 in their last 10 games and 3 games ahead of the Dodgers and 12 games ahead of the Padres. But because that's such a strong division, the Dodgers and Padres are ahead of Cincinnati in the wild card race. So we could still yet see the Padres making it through to the playoffs. So, yeah, that's pretty much what's happening in MLB. Jason Matthews, young Aucklander, had his 7th home run of the season as he continues to anchor his Great Falls Voyagers lineup, averaging .356 with 79 hits, 17 doubles, 70 triples, and 50 runs batted in 60 games. Kyle Glogowski still on the disabled list with a right elbow strain, while Ben Thompson continues to progress with the low-A Augusta Green Jackets. He's pitched in 23 games so far with an ERA of 5.77, but an incredible 50 strikeouts, more than 2 per game played. And young Aucklander Elliot Johnston has finally arrived in the US to begin life as a New York Met and will pitch in the Florida Complex League against rookie teams from other MLB bases in the state. And that competition started yesterday. Elliot didn't get a run out yesterday, but we'll be following his progress closely as well.
Awesome.
pretty much it for baseball this week.
All right, mate. Just quickly, let's get to some other stuff before we bid adieu. Shout outs to new friends of the show. We got a couple of new friends of the show, Shane Fordry and Nick Miller on Facebook. If you want to follow us on Facebook, it's the Hot Air Sports Podcast on Facebook. So Shane and Nick, welcome aboard. Charles Harvey also posted, said, boys, we need you now more than ever. When we went into lockdown, we're here for you, Charles. Extra long edition for you today, son. And also, Murray McAuliffe yesterday was saying he reckons he should do a list of top All Blacks 15 compared to what the experts are putting out. Well, we'll do that just for you, mate. We're going to do that in the next couple of weeks when we've got a little bit more time on our hands. Now, we've got a new feature just before we go. Best bet of the week. And I'm going to do it this week. Now, I saw something on the Facebook regarding someone who had put down a little bit of money and made a whole lot of money. And I thought, well, why not? Why not? Because we're quite good at, guessing the odd sporting result. So why not share some of the love with some of our listeners? And
both our TAB accounts are
are relatively empty. But look, if you're stupid enough to listen to exactly what we think you should do, here's my bet of the week from the Hot Air Sports Podcast. Okay. Now, the Panthers beat the Rabbits 56-12 in round 11, and this week they welcome back James Fisher-Harris from injury and former Bronco Tavita Pangai Jr. to be included off the bench, as well as Ivan Cleary's son. So why the hell would you bet on the Rabbitohs? Well, that's my pick for the week, mate, the Rabbitohs. The Panthers are massive favourites, $1.75 at the TAB, but I reckon Wayne Bennett is going to get the Rabbits up for this one. Redemption for the earlier loss. $2.05 at the TAB. You want to double your money, put it on that. You want a little bit more value, $3.40, the margin, 1-12 for the Rabbits. And that's tonight. You only have to wait a few hours, chuck some money on that, and you'll double your money. Courtesy of the boys at the Hot Air Sports Podcast and the TAB.
Marvellous. We've got an RIP this week. Gerd Muller de Bomber died earlier this week, age 76.
He did.
Played virtually as... excuse me.
Oh, mate. I don't want the next RIP to be Ian McDonald. So come on, get through this, mate. Come on, you can do it.
Played virtually his whole career at Bayern Munich, 453 games, 398 goals, and scored 68 goals and 62 appearances for West Germany. A true goal-scoring great. We've also got to get well soon for former Wallaby number 8, Totai Kefu.
Yeah.
Stabbed in a home invasion at his house in Brisbane last week. I understand he is coming along quite nicely as well. And a good week, bad week. Good week. Michael Jordan, the great American basketball player, has had a good week. He made $5 million this week on the back of PSG Messi shirts being sold.
Is that right?
Designed by Nike, but with Michael's caricature on them. And so he claims royalties from all those PSG shirts that are the Jordan brand.
Oh, awesome. Good on him.
Yeah, $5 million in Michael's pocket.
Nice work if you can get it.
Quite right. Bad week. I've gone for Mikel Arteta. Sees his Arsenal side beaten by newly promoted Brentford to start the new Premier League season.
Absolutely. And just before we go, one last RIP, someone that you and I are both very fond of, Sean Locke, of course, died on 8 out of 10 Cats Do Countdown, one of our favourite comedians. He's just an absolute champion. He had the driest, most acerbic wit ever and died way too soon. RIP to him as well from both of us who are big fans. Unbeaten carrot in the box champ.
I saw that recently on one of the 8 out of 10 Cats, Jimmy Carr asked him if there was a word in the dictionary just to describe you, Sean, what would it be? And Sean's reply was, it's a 4-letter word. It starts with C, it's got a U and a T in it, and that word would be cute.
And on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, your lockdown special is done and dusted. A couple of hours of pure sporting entertainment just for you. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff, and we'll catch you on the other side of this lockdown.
Right. Back again next Friday. Hooroo.
Beautiful. See you later.